We are film freaks. All right, Venom is directed by Ruben Fletcher and stars Tom Hardy and Michelle Williams and among others. And this is the second film based on the popular Venom that's from the Marvel comic books that started. That's been around since for a long time. And in the comic books, he was originally known as Spider-Man's nemesis.
Yeah.
But then I believe around the late '80s and early '90s, they had standalone comic books where Venom was the main character.
Which took a more horror approach to the character.
And this is basically, we don't know yet, but for what we understand is that this is also part of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but we're still waiting for confirmation of
right now, this has been like the most controversial thing going on. It has a lot to do with production companies. Sony owns the rights to this.
Yeah.
Some predict that Sony did this out of spite so Marvel don't earn the rights back to the character. And there's also speculation that Sony's willing to work with Marvel together.
Yeah.
But they just wanted to build their own universe first. And then, I mean, it's a confusing thing because we were led to believe that Sony was going to make just their own Venom trilogy without MCU in it because they were wanting to make this a brutal, hard R, gory film.
Yeah.
However, that changed when Sony, Sony, wanted to appeal for more everybody.
Yeah, and basically the story of this deals with Eddie Brock, who's a reporter that gets into you pretty much seen the trailers. There's something that happens to where there's a symbiote type of thing that came from outer space after an explosion went wrong, and this symbiote gets loose, and it's going. Well, first after it gets captured and everything, it gets loose after some stuff happens. Then it gets a hold of Eddie Brock, and the rest of the film deals with Eddie Brock having to adapt to this symbiote that takes the form of Venom.
Yeah.
Along with that, you have to deal. He deals with basically it deals with him.
Because it's in the trailers that he's basically trying. If you guys even know, I think everybody knows about Drake. He's a big character.
He's basically the guy who runs this corporation called the Life Foundation, and he takes control of he gets all the specimens of the symbiotes and to take control of it, and basically he has to find like hosts for the symbiotes, and he tests them out. Not going to spoil in detail because we'll have a spoiler discussion, but some stuff goes down, and the rest of the film deals with him. If you've seen the trailer, he eventually gets attached to it himself, and it deals with basically him wanting to take control, basically control the world with the symbiotes.
Yeah.
And so, now, to go into further backstory like we discussed earlier, I was actually really looking for this movie because coming off of knowing the character of Venom, like I know from the comic books and from Spider-Man, Venom has always been one of those characters that I've always enjoyed, especially in the old cartoon series of Spider-Man and Spider-Man in general.
Yeah, he's my favorite Spider-Man villain, too.
Yeah.
The symbiotes, all of the symbiotes.
I was really looking for this movie because, for one, just based on the trailers, it really seemed like, we're getting this trend nowadays where we're starting to see, like, anti-heroes having spin-offs and stuff. Like, next year we're going to have Joker.
Where they're kind of like, it gives us a whole origin story of their whole backstory.
Yeah, and also what really threw me off, and also it really got me fascinated because the last time we seen Venom in a movie like this was Spider-Man 3, and that to me was such a waste because that movie shouldn't even had Venom to begin with.
Yeah, he was in it for 5 minutes, but 2, you got Topher Grace out of all fucking actors to play that role. Jesus, age Christ.
Yeah,
he had no purpose of being in this film. And it was nice to see. I was looking forward to it, too, because it was nice to know that we were going to get a whole movie dedicated to Venom. Yeah,
and also what really was interesting was that they decided not to use Spider-Man as, like, the backstory for this. Instead, they're going based more on, like, the other comic books, which don't have Spider-Man. And so that's what got me curious, because now it seems like they're trying to do it as a standalone franchise, which I'm down for. But the problem, like he was saying earlier, was that it felt like the studios involved with Sony, they wanted to push for an R rating because the way the film's tone was going. But because of the last second they decided to work with the MCU, with Disney, on trying to bring this into the MCU, they decided to make it edited to a PG-13.
Well, the problem with this is the fact that they actually shot this movie thinking they're going to do a standalone trilogy and make it a hard R. And then at the last second, and this was just mere months ago. Not even that. They had to reshoot and refix some things on top of getting rid of all the rated R shit, because now you got the rumors of who's buying who, and Disney's, MCU's going to possibly, integrate. I don't know. So
it's hard to explain, but basically they're trying to. While they were going back and forth between whether it was going to be an MCU or not.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I meant. Yeah.
They said originally it wasn't, then it wasn't. So now they're saying, from what we've heard last, it is part of this universe.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. The word. It was going to be. Now, last second they decide maybe MCU, maybe not. We don't know.
But now they said that it is confirmed.
So pretty much. For any faults we're going to mention, even though we thought the movie was pretty entertaining, which we'll get to, is pretty much, again, Sony and pretty much the whole dilemma they had behind screen.
Yeah. So, but I can say and when I heard a lot of people talking about this film when it came out, it really surprised me for all the really negative attention that it got. Yeah. Because this is probably the first superhero movie I've seen, at least from a critical standpoint, that got heavily bashed since, Fantastic Four, which I saw about 40 minutes of that, but I didn't finish it. But after seeing this movie was not that fucking bad.
Yeah,
I really don't understand where the critics got the film.
The critics. When I first saw the critics score, I knew that. I didn't expect it to be that bad, but it is critics, so I didn't want to go into it until I saw the audience score, and then I saw the audience score started out good, but then it just dropped like a fucking hot potato, and then I started. Man, everybody was fucking hating this movie, saying it was fucking utter trash. Some compared it to Catwoman bad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, after seeing this movie, while it has a lot of problems, this movie was nowhere near as bad as people were saying.
No, it does have a lot more entertainment than it should deserve.
Yeah.
Now, to get my pros out of the way, I'll say Tom Hardy, perfectly cast. He did phenomenal in this.
Yeah.
I liked him. Not only did I like his relationship with Venom, but also as a character himself. I liked how he was just an everyday guy that is just trying to, he's basically, the good comparison with this on the character is Stanley Ipkiss from The Mask. A guy who
is a loser.
Who's a loser. Yeah. He wants to try to get better in his life and stuff. And basically he looks at becoming like a superhero in a way to do
Tom
better.
Hardy was the perfect choice for Venom, and I had no doubt in him. And I did like his story. I liked him as Eddie Brock. He was, you got people who can play Batman, and someone can't play Bruce Wayne or so and so. I think Tom Hardy plays the Venom, and he plays the Eddie Brock perfectly. And I like that he's also an everyday guy, somebody you can relate to that's got financial problems. It's not making him out to be, something unrealistically. This guy's got, drinking problems, some stuff.
Yeah, and I also liked how it delves into his relationship with his girlfriend, played by Michelle Williams, and I did like their chemistry. I know a lot of people didn't care much for her character, but I thought that she, on a writing standpoint, she wasn't too bad. I thought she was pretty good.
Yeah.
I also liked how, basically, as the film goes along, we start to see that, it has a good build-up to all this happening, because we see that the symbiotes, are let loose due to an incident that happens. And one of the biggest other praise I have the most is, like you were going back to, when we actually see Venom become actually Venom, and it shows him and Tom Hardy together.
Yeah.
The way that they're bickering back and forth, I got into that.
Yeah, I love their bickering back and forth. I thought the highlights over the entire film was with Tom Hardy and Venom talking, and generally it was pretty fucking hilarious.
There was
a lot of comedy in this film. A little bit more than a lot of people probably liked, but I still enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty funny. And since this film's on my cons I'll get to, had some problems with the story, and, later on in the movie, I was glad at least there was something that made the film very entertaining.
It did, yeah, definitely. And I also got to admit, I did enjoy some of the action scenes too, especially when some of the stuff that Venom does, like how he's climbing up all the trees and stuff, and he's breaking through stuff and showing his strength. I like that they do a lot of that.
I also, for maybe a couple scenes, aside from a couple scenes, I liked all the cool looking symbiotes they had, like the yellow one,
Yeah.
the blue one, and all that. I love the looks of them.
Yeah, and they're really trying to build something out of this with the future as well, with those symbiotes. But also, one of the other biggest praise I have is, even though the movie is PG-13, there are at least a couple of points where it does actually push the R rating. They actually do get away with it in a couple scenes.
Couple scenes, yeah.
And you know, it also has. I like the score too. It was actually kind of had like a kind of rock kind of score to it.
Yeah, it started doing kind of a rock thing. Yeah.
I also got to give credit to the CGI. Looked pretty good too for Venom. I was worried at first how it looked because of the way it's all like, you know, video game kind of quality, but I thought it blended pretty well.
It did. I like how it like really shines. Like, instead of being so overly CGI, there was some. Don't get me wrong, there are some CGI issues here and there, but I liked how it almost looked like he was wearing slime.
Yeah,
from
that's
the
what
way
I'm saying.
he looked. Like it looked like Tom Hardy was wearing an actual slime suit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Instead of like, you know, CGI. So some parts they render it very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Now, as much as we got into... Now, this is now pretty much where we get to our cons. Now, me and him are kind of even on certain things with this, but to kind of go into the beginning, I liked where the movie was going at first, like how it built up with the story and everything.
Yep.
I felt like this really comes into more of an editing issue with me, because you can tell that there are scenes that basically the story, the way it's kind of bonding with Venom and Eddie Brock, it is kind of like we're missing certain things.
And that is true. The editing is a major issue in this film, and it has a lot to do with, you know, you got parts where you start building a while with Tom Hardy and Venom's chemistry, and then it just jumps into
it like time jumps for some reason.
It time jumps to where they almost feel like they skip the build, because you know they bump heads at first. You expect that.
Yeah.
Then you start expecting kind of like, don't do that, no, and then shit like that. Then you want to see as they grow on to each other. They skip the growing on to each other part and just goes into like they've been together for a while.
Yeah.
So it's like without spoiling it, you get scenes that just feel like they move too fucking quickly. Like, not just quickly, it's the fact that it seems quick because there was a big missing piece to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And it does, because if you guys haven't heard Tom Hardy,
he said 40 minutes was about
40
cut
minutes
out.
was cut out of this film. And he said what pissed him off is not just the gory shit, because scenes that went concurrently and explaining all the way till the end maybe had like a gory scene in it, instead of like taking the gory part out and fixing it up a little bit and reshooting it a little bit so you can get your PG-13 for you guys. They cut the whole entire scene out, and basically it kind of suffers, even though more entertaining, it suffers kind of a little bit what Batman vs Superman did on some editing issues.
Yeah.
Not as severe, but still
yeah,
pretty bad.
it really feels like I get that they're trying to appeal to the mass market and everything.
Yeah.
But if you're going to cut a chunk load of story out, you have a problem there. I can understand if you're cutting out, like, you know, a lot of gore sequences and things like that. But when you cut out chunks of story, you lose a lot of focus in the film.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a scene later on in the film where now this kind of goes to our spoilers later, but it kind of relates to the main villain, Riot. It really feels like there was a chunk missing toward the end, because it felt like it was so fucking rushed when that happened.
It is so rushed. And then the guy who plays Drake in this story, I don't think I hated him as bad as a lot of people would say. Like, I wouldn't compare him to Jesse Eisenberg in Batman vs Superman, because that was a whole lot of bad on another fucking level. I don't think a lot of people can capture that was that bad. However, I do feel like it could have been a better actor.
Yeah,
if you had openly.
And it could have had a lot better story,
but
too.
really, it's not the actor himself.
It's the writing.
It's the writing, because I'm going to get into this other fucking con. Boy, whenever, not aside of him, but just talking about Riot for just a second here, they talk about, they made the same fucking mistake they did in Spider-Man 3 yet a fucking again. Or made Spider-Man 2 Green Goblin, for example, where the fight is so quick. And it also just comes out of nowhere. Like, you're getting into that part where you think, okay, you're at the down part of the story. Instead, the down part is like quick, and then we're already at the fucking climax. And I'm like, God damn, this movie just fucking jumped.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's what I'm saying. You can really tell the way the movie was going along. It felt like they really rushed that toward the last act.
I'm like, I had to look at my time. I was like, God damn. Like, we saw Hellfest earlier, and I felt like I was in that movie a fucking long-ass time.
Yeah.
And it was great. And then I'm in this film, and I felt like I just walked in the theater that's already fucking over with.
Yeah.
So it's like, jeez, man, what's up?
That's what I'm saying. And then to kind of go into a little bit of my other cons, now the CGI for the most part I do enjoy. There were a couple points, mainly in the last act when it shows CGI can be quite distracting at times when it shows like parts with riots and things like that.
Yeah.
But other than that, but other than that,
CGI,
for the most part,
well, the CGI part, two of them I had. The part where, like, you saw in the trailers, the blue thing getting on that one guy.
Yeah.
And that's all in the trailer, so that's not a spoiler. I did notice a little bit, but focusing on the guy's shirt and all that, you can kind of see it. And the part where Venom is got that bald dude on that thing, he licks him. I did notice the slobber itself was fucking CGI.
Yeah, I could see that.
Really noticeable.
Now, if I had any other complaint, I would say is that while the tone itself is pretty cool with how it built, it's basically, throughout the most of it, it's kind of like a horror comedy kind of going feel of it for the most part, and it works. It does feel like the tone does kind of feel inconsistent at times, the way it was edited.
It was edited because you got to think that this film actually completely shot, and it was ready to go as a pure horror film. Because of the back of having to take the horror elements out, they leave some of it in and had to mix it with more genuine stuff for all the audience can watch.
Yeah.
And there you go. You get a comedy, which I loved. It was a funny film, but it goes on so long. So you get almost a pure comedy. Then you get the horror elements, mainly in the beginnings, the horror elements. Yeah. And then you have a quick part, you can say, action genre. So it's like, I mean, even though it didn't piss me off, it just, because I was having an entertainment value out of it, digging deep, it does have a tone problem.
Yeah, it felt like it didn't like flow well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, flow.
Now there's more. Like I said, we'll go more in detail in our spoiler discussion. But overall, I will say that this movie was not as bad, nearly as bad as what people have been paying out to be, at least in my opinion. So with that, I'm going to give the film just a very low, very low, compelling score on the Film Phreeks meter.
I'm actually going to go a little different in him this time. I noticed more problems than he did. I'm going to go with a high average Joe in the Film Phreeks meter.
Fair enough. And for those of you who have also seen Venom, let us know in the comments below of what you thought about it. And if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe to our channel and check out more of our other reviews here and on our website at filmphreeks.com. And we'll be seeing you on the next review. We'll see you later.
Later.